So this is really what I'm going to be talking about today. And in a more formal way, working in teams, our students team up with students from ESCA, in this case, École Supérieure de Commerce et d'Administration. This is the school that is our partner in Casablanca. So we have mixed teams. They are tackling a real business challenge. They put the consultant hat on, or the top management team's hat. They analyze the problem from every angle. They collect data, they debate, they advance set of alternatives, recommendations, and then they propose solutions and present these solutions to the top management team. So this is somewhat similar to a case study, but it takes it to a different level, obviously, especially given that it is a live case. So what I am presenting today here are highlights again from 3 different live cases that were completed. All 3 were completed in Morocco between 2015 and 2018. So what's unique about this is that live cases on study abroad with peers integrate 3 different signature experiences. We are talking about study abroad, obviously, and all of that carries with it being in a different country and meeting different people and learning about the way things are done, especially on the business level in a different country. Mix that with cross-cultural teams, and there's plenty of research that talks about the value of cross-cultural teams and their impact. And then add to that live case. The case method is widely used in business. Live cases are that much more challenging because students live the case itself. They experience the events in the case and they're actually solving the case as they go. So what I am presenting today is really an integration of these 3 different signature experiences in international business. All right, what I have done is lay out this a series of steps, and for every step, I would like to share some of the do's and don'ts or recommendations and maybe share with you experiences on what worked for us and what did not work. Step 1. First of all, we are talking about students who are going to wear consultants' hats. And I think it behooves us to make sure that our students are ready. Keep in mind that our study abroad programs here at GSU, at least, are open to business and non-business students. Quite often the challenge is business related. I love having non-business students on my study abroad program. They bring in a fresh idea, they bring in a fresh perspective, they are very clever, committed, and it is very nice to have them intermixed with our business students. But it is very important for us to lay out the foundations. Our study abroad at Georgia State involve a course, 3-hour course, followed by the study abroad component. So during the course itself, before the travel piece, we tend to cover the fundamentals, relating or anchored around the country that we are going to visit, whether it is Morocco, UAE, South Africa, Brazil. So I use the PESTEL, political, economic, sociocultural, technological, environmental, and legal environment. On the industry level, we use the Porter's 5 forces. The company level, quite often I use the SWOT analysis. And because many of our live cases involve products or services, I also make sure I cover the 4 Ps. The 4 Ps is a framework in marketing that talks about price, promotion, and place of any given product or service. So I think a key aspect of live cases, or making sure that live cases are successful, is to also make sure that the students go into these experiences with a good foundation of the key frameworks and tools that they can use. The other aspect, and we learned the hard way here, is to make sure that students are also familiar with the art of and science of data collection. We are expecting our students to collect primary data above and beyond what's available in the library. So it's very important for us to talk about observations, interviews, surveys, and some of the key aspects that they have to keep in mind. So these 2, the frameworks and the data tools, are 2 of the, I will say, the knowledge base that I would like our students to have before they go in there and start wearing their, or start putting on their consultant hat. Step 2, incorporate a peer component. And I would like to have a quick poll here, so if Rebecca can help us. I'm curious to see, I know that Tamir started the study abroad with peers and it has worked very well. I believe Tamir did this for the study abroad in Turkey before, where Turkish students were involved with our students. But I wonder if Rebecca can help us and see if how many of you actually have allowed or built in student-to-student interaction on your study abroad programs or programs you are aware of. Let me highlight some of the do's and don'ts in this area in terms of the peer component. One, most of you know that research have shown cross-cultural teams are actually much more effective in innovative tasks, in complex problems, solving complex problems than homogeneous teams. The challenge is, however, that it takes longer for diverse teams to kind of jive and get to the point where they are become very effective. So here, the recommendation is to start early. We are fortunate in that we work with a partner in ESCA, and we are able to identify the students who might join us. So they select students for us. Usually I work with a colleague, another professor. Dr. Abba has been one of those professors that really has been very, very instrumental in making sure these kind of are successful. Leverage social media. I mean, students use social media. They use Facebook, they use Instagram, they use Twitter, and sometimes it's very helpful to allow them. They choose their own platform. Don't impose any platform on them, but allow them to meet and interact. One thing that has also worked very well for us on these is to start with an introductory task. Remember, these quite often they don't know each other, especially when they meet the first time face to face or even virtually. I asked them to come up with a team name. And the team name is not any random name, but a name that reflects something in common among all team members. And it's a fun task. They take it seriously. I had people who call themselves foodies because they found that all of them like to try new food. I had the team call themselves Barcelona because they all actually like either to go to Barcelona or like the Barcelona soccer team. So they come up with all these great things, and it's fun. It's not non-threatening. It's easy for them, and it breaks the ice and gets the team kind of move into the more serious task in a much more comfortable way. All right, let's see here. I see the poll here. Oh, yes, I see the poll. So I had to actually click on the next button. Wow, I see that actually over about 3/4 of you actually have built these components in there. And I'm glad to see that. I'm really glad to see that because as Tamir was mentioning a second ago, these take the study abroad to a completely new level. I mean, the personal relationship that build and the reflections that students are able to share with us really support the idea that the peer component is a very powerful component on the study abroad program. So this is an example. I just picked up these pictures. We allow for peer-to-peer meetings. This is, I think, where there was a concert. Actually, we had students sing, ESCA students sing rap music in Arabic, and our students loved it. And this was in Casablanca, and this was in the industrial zone in Saleh near Rabat. And this is during a visit here. And again, we try to build in this social activity, these opportunities for students to relax and get to know each other. All right, so next step is joint company visits and issue presentation. You need to know what you have to deal with. This is one of the most, of course, important components. The students go. This is an example from a company in Morocco, one of the biggest tea producers. They buy the tea, raw material from India and Sri Lanka and other places. Morocco, by the way, on a per capita basis, drink more tea than any other country on the planet. Tea is like the national water in Morocco. And so this is a very important industry for the country. So one of the things that we came up with in terms of reflecting on these visits and on this presentation of the problems is to make sure your students are actively asking questions. Meet with different managers and ask questions. Allow time to observe how work is done. So we ask them, can you walk around? Can you see how things are done? And also, what we found very helpful is to chat with other employees. We found secretaries and people work in different offices, and we just walk around and chat with them. You have to ask for permission, obviously, but where we were able to do this, it was very, very helpful to visualize the workspace, to visualize the company, and to see how things are done there, and give them time to do that. I think with the tea company, it was very helpful for us to take, I think, over an hour, where we spent time kind of walking around and getting to know people who work there. All right, tour of facility. This is also very, very important, and touring the facilities is really one of the key aspect, experiential aspect that adds that extra element of relevance, extra element of importance, I think, to the field, to these life cases. This on the right side, I think on your right side, there's a tour of the Sultan Tea Factory. You see the sign outside there, and they were telling us about everything about the type of tea. We learned so much about tea, and it's quite an interesting industry here. This is very, very important because also help the students see beyond the offices, the picture I showed you earlier, all of the other kind of logistical aspect and storing, warehousing, inventory that goes with the business at hand. All right. So defining the problem. This is where you set the parameters. Encourage probing question, as I mentioned. I see here the question. Very good. Wow, you guys are good students. I see almost 90% of you say this is very important. It is very important, but keep in mind, one of the challenges is that as important as it is to have the problem analyzed from different perspectives, from different angles, it is important to understand that quite often, at least in two experiences, different stakeholders might have different expectations. And you really need to be able to manage those expectations. So how do you manage those? Asking probing questions. The question is to be well articulated. Set clear expectations of the deliverable. What do you expect from us? A solution on where to position this product, the pricing, how to promote it, the market segment. What are you looking for really? And I think that's very important before the students go off and start doing their own thing. Summarize the problem in a clear, short statement. So what you are being asked is to help us with the positioning of this new product in the market in the city of Casablanca. And I think that helps because otherwise if it's too vague, students don't get as much out of it. So you are right. It's very important to talk to multiple stakeholders, but also it is very important to know that sometimes different stakeholders might have different expectations. All right, so we are given the challenge. We are told to help
Murat, if I can,
yes, please,
if I can pause you for a minute.
Yes.
One of the questions we have, and one of the participants has, do you run into circumstances where the employers you meet, businesses you meet are interested in having our students work for them, do a project for them, perhaps offer an internship to them? Has this ever happened in your own experience?
Absolutely. And I can think of the top of my head, 3 different instances where one person was offered an internship on the job. One person went back and is not offered a job, but her company, she works here in Atlanta in a company with medical devices, and a business, one of the companies we visited there was in the field, and she actually traveled back and was able to negotiate a business deal with them on behalf of her company. So this is an example of how, as a follow-up to what we have done, a company was able to build a relationship with the local company in Morocco. And on a third example, yes, once our student was offered a job after we came back with one of the companies in Morocco. Unfortunately, I did not follow up on that, but absolutely. One was on the spot, the internship offer, which quite often internship kind of lead to job opportunities. One was a business deal. And another one, this was not Morocco, this was South Africa, and it was also a job offer with an IT security company in Johannesburg for one of our students. So yes, absolutely, and I love to see those.
Oh, great, thank you.
One thing also I want to mention is the question is, I always, and Paula knows this, we receive feedback from the company in written format, or I had a company say, wow, your MBA students are outstanding. And I said, these are not MBAs, these are undergraduate students. And they could not believe, that the students that were helping them were undergraduates. I think a key is, of course, they are invested in this, but also if they go in with enough tools and with the right kind of frameworks and the right set of expectations, they can shine. And I think on multiple occasions, we heard some amazing feedback about our students on these life cases. So the brainstorming session, now they come back, they know what they're in for. Self-managed teams work best. I found out that I don't need to impose. I tend to impose too much structure myself on my teams. I think in this case, I learned to, let them run with it. Watch out for groupthink. In this brainstorming, and this is, by the way, the case for cases, live cases, teamwork, you do have students who are very proactive, who like to talk, who like to be there, who like to answer the questions before the questions are asked, and they tend to dominate, and quite often groupthink kind of follows. So make sure that you encourage everyone to participate and encourage everyone to ask questions. One of the tools I use with my students is the 5 whys. So if you think you know what you're doing, and if you think this is the solution, why? And then when they answer, ask another why. So there are 5 why steps. We use this in our classes, and it really pushes the person with the proposal, with the recommendation, to challenge themselves and to think carefully about why is it that they're recommending what they're recommending. One approach I also use to make sure those people or the students who are very active do not dominate is to have another student play the devil's advocate. And the devil's advocate is the person who challenges assumptions within teams. So the 5 why, the devil advocates, there are other tools. All of them are there to ensure that groupthink does not take place and that effective team kind of dynamics follow. Fieldwork here can be quite a challenge. We are asking our students to go out there. This was amazing. I mean, I was very impressed with one of the teams, especially the one who did this for Procter & Gamble subsidiary in Casablanca. They had to identify distribution channels and point of sales. Make sure if they are talking to vendors or talking to customers, as the case was for one of our projects, our students were there at Carrefour, which is like Target here, or Super Target, asking customers questions along with their peers, which was very helpful because the peers helped with the language. But make sure that the questions are culturally sensitive. Just one specific example, you do not ask a Moroccan female participant, does her and her boyfriend, do they think about buying something in common? Well, that might be okay informally, but that is not something that is asked or something that is acceptable within the culture of Morocco. So there are certain kind of do's and don'ts that we really need to be sure to cover there. And again, you work closely with the host nationals here on the data collection. One lesson here, since we are having our students go to these different points of sales and different ideas, this is an example of where they went. This group here went to a bazaar, the souks in Morocco, because the product was sold in souks. The same product is also sold in this main street city, the hustle and bustle of downtown Casablanca here. And the product could also be available through another retail channel, that's the hyper, ultra-modern malls that are the wave right now in Morocco and other places. So you have students now going to all these different locations. Well, guess what? Traffic in Casablanca is horrendous, and you really need to allow time for that. I think our students were 2 hours late. We had to allow time for traffic, but also for socialization. Our students were asking Moroccan consumers questions about buying behavior, and I was very impressed with how generous the Moroccan consumers were with information. They were ready to help, but they were more curious about our students than answering the question. And they kind of turned the tables around and were asking our students about what they're doing, what they thought about Morocco, what they liked most, if they tried couscous, if they tried tea, if they tried this or that. So what the students planned as a 5-minute questions and answer turned into a 20-minute socialization, and which is great. I mean, that's how we learn. But for us, those who plan and want to control time, really need to be aware of those things. Step 7, you come back. Now remember, you have these people go into different locations, they come back, they bring the knowledge, they bring their surveys with them. And we have another team that say they like what in this case, what these guys did. They said, you know what, based on the problem, there's some secondary data that we need, some research that needs to be done. So they split themselves in half. Some stayed behind, these guys here, collecting data and pooling information, and they were receiving information from these guys here who actually went to the streets and then came back. And then they got together and they pooled the primary and secondary data together, and they did more deliberation, obviously, on what to do with all that information. So that's step 7. Now, the last step, of course, they come up with recommendations. They are ready now to present. The top management team from the company is there now. The stakes are high. We had one time, at least for the Casablanca subsidiary of Procter & Gamble, we had the VP of marketing, we had the VP of this, the VP of that. And so it was quite a high profile kind of setting. Here, one recommendation for the students is to focus on just a subset. Just, you know, all of that coming like, oh, we have a solution. No, maybe you want to focus on 2, 3 and delve in those and provide more insight into the key recommendation that you are suggesting, and we let them select the presenters. So again, these are mostly self-managed teams. We give them these guidelines and mentors, but we don't want to impose on them. We want them to take pride in what they are doing. And actually right now, I have another poll I'd like to run to seek feedback on debriefings. Now we're done, so we present here. And I would like to see from you, how important do you think debriefing is after we finish presenting the solution to the top management team? And while we're waiting for that, I can talk about something else. I don't want to buy.
I also have a question,
yes,
going back a little bit, Murat.
Yes, no problem.
On the selection of the peer students, in
Yes.
our case, we were very fortunate to have good colleagues at our partner school in Istanbul who went to great lengths to interview, first of all, announce the possibility that these students may become our peers when we do visit the country. And then having received many, many more applications than the students we can accommodate. Typically, we had about 7, 8 students as peer students. They had to interview these applicants.
Right. Okay.
And look for certain characteristics, certain personality characteristics, language proficiency, and previous experience in cross-cultural matters and so on. So we were very lucky. So we didn't have to necessarily coach our partner professor in the country. And we kept using the same professor, and he always came through. What has been your experience in terms of working with your partner?
Yes, I don't think interviews were involved. I mentioned earlier that I work very closely with one of the professors there. She has been really my main contact at the school, and through her, I was able to meet a few other faculty members. So what they do is they announce our visit. They announce that we are going to be participating in this live case. And at least in the 2 cases I can think of, these are all students in Dr. Abba's class. So she builds the live case into her course. So it's a different approach. So the students are there, and so this is an experience that's also built into her international management class. So it's a different approach. However, I think what is common is something you mentioned, is how important it is to have a champion on the other side, to have someone that you can work with, someone you can count on, and someone who can make things happen for you. I don't honestly see these running or being as impactful or as successful without the help of our local partners in Casablanca. And I know my students are always impressed by how engaged they are, how hospitable they are. They feed us all the time. We're drinking tea all the time. They take us to all these places. And Dr. Abba and I do a lot of coordination ahead of time before this happens. So it's a different approach maybe, but it is really more of a faculty to faculty, and then bringing our students together.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so I see the poll. Oh, okay, wow. You guys are amazing, absolutely. As a matter of fact, in any experiential activity, debriefing and reflection is a pillar of experiential learning. I don't think you can get much out of experiences like these without reflections, without debriefings. Because remember, everyone comes in with their own knowledge, their own biases, their own perception, their own realities. and they all get different things out of these. And I think debriefing allows us to pool all of those ideas, all of these takeaways into a knowledge base that can be helpful for everyone who participates. I shared a comment based on a reflection, and I know what we've done with on a couple of occasions. I think Paula and I actually sit down and write some of these down. One of the students said, and this is I put this because this is reflective of the general feedback. Tamir alluded to this earlier. This was probably one of the most rewarding events of this trip. Us GSU, I just copied this, us GSU students and our ESCA friends were able to help a well-known tea company by giving our recommendation on launching a new product in a new category for Morocco. I was finally able to use what I learned in all those marketing classes to help give solutions and suggestions. Hands down, the best visit on this trip. Oh, and we got some amazing mint tea. Another one, this experience was one of the most challenging I ever had experienced in my academic career. And by the way, this is common. I had students say that the life case on the study abroad program, especially for those seniors, was the most challenging and rewarding experiences on the academic BBA program or bachelor program. And that's very, very encouraging. It's humbling. And I love to see this. When we look at the reflections, I think on one, 16 out of 16 said the life case was the most impactful experience on the study abroad program. On another one, 14 out of 15. And for that student, the number one was the follow-up enjoyment of tea after the life case. So it still was related to the life case. So these can be very, very impactful and powerful tools for our undergraduates.
Very impressive. I can add, Murat,
yes,
we captured typically some of the reflections from our students and peer students in a video, in a short video. We created collages of 7-minute, 8-minute videos and used them in subsequent years to educate potential applicants, new students who would like to participate. We have a few questions from our participants who I'd like to direct to you, Murat. One is, have any students from partner schools come to Georgia State University to continue their education?
No, and that's really, I think, an issue. First of all, Georgia State University is prohibitively expensive for students. If you look at the average income in Morocco, it's very easy for our students to go there. And I'm sure the folks on study abroad and others know this. This is a limitation. We were talking about a short visit, similar to what we do with the Sorbonne at Robinson College of Business, where they come for a short period of time. But this was, our discussion was on the executive MBA offered there, different group. So for undergraduates to come to Georgia State and take classes, unfortunately, it is quite challenging unless there is some type of system in place. I know there were discussion, and Jacobus was involved in these, in terms of how do we develop these into a two-way, true partnership and two-way interaction. But to date, I do not have any student from ESCA come to Georgia State and complete their education here.
We have another good question, I think. This is about finding the right balance between the academic content and exposure to business elements of the country and the companies they are visiting versus the personal development, cross-cultural development of the students. So all programs incorporate these two dimensions. These two components are equally important: the academic content as well as personal growth and becoming more familiar with the culture of the country they're visiting. How do you keep that balance, that fine balance in your programs?
Good question, very good question. I think it is very important to make sure that you build enough of these unique cultural experiences. I think it's an opportunity loss when you take students to a country and fill the program with company visits and all of these academic experiences and not allow them to either on their own. My slide here shows what we do after the life cases. We allow them to go out. I mean, and this is just as important as anything else. But visiting heritage sites like mosques, like archaeological sites, the souks. Because remember, students are learning while they're looking. So I think there is not really I don't see as much of a dichotomy between, let's say, cultural sites and academic sites. They are learning even by visiting cultural sites. This is, when I look, for example, in Morocco, when we go to Shella Necropolis in Rabat, or when we go to the mosque in Casablanca, and we talk about the expenses there, and we talk about what, it also reflects on the political system, reflects on the economic system, reflects on the social system. So in general, we have about 2 academic activity per day, and then 1 cultural activity. If it's an academic activity that's more demanding, we have 1, but we try to build in 1 cultural activity at least per day. And I don't see really as a clear distinction, at least as far as international business is concerned, culture being a big part of the discussion of international business. I don't see that dichotomy between the 2.
Yeah, I think one of the ways in which we dealt with this issue, typically in a large metropolitan area like Istanbul, we realized that morning traffic is going to be horrendous. So we brought speakers, and typically academic or more heavy content speakers, into our hotel for morning briefings, and then ventured out to the city for company visits and trips and cultural experiences. So we try to deal with it that way.
Yeah.
Another question, do you get to measure, test the students' cultural intelligence, how it was before and after, kind of doing a before and after assessment?
All right, very good question. As a matter of fact, this is some ideas about looking ahead, and this is really at the heart of it, assessment. On the assessment, we have the student reflection that we looked at. We did not use the intercultural effectiveness scale survey. I know we are using it now for a virtual exchange project with Morocco, as a matter of fact, with the same partner in Morocco. But that is one thing that I have here, maybe building on what we've done. We have them do an essay on Morocco beforehand. So on the very first day, we have them share with us knowledge about Morocco, about its culture, and then we have them answer the same questions toward the end. Basically, what does Morocco say to you? What do you know about the culture? And then we are able to look at that. However, I think a more rigorous assessment is needed, especially when you start building these signature experiences in there. And one thing that we just added this year, that's we have completed for the virtual exchange, which was supposed to be a virtual exchange followed by a study abroad and a live case in Morocco, is the IES, from Experien Global, the Intercultural Effectiveness Survey. So moving forward, yes, previously it was based on essays, pre-essays and post-essays and reflections. So any other ideas you have, by the way, I'm keen on learning more about assessment. I've been reading about what others are doing, but if you have other ideas beyond the intercultural effectiveness survey and reflection essays, I would love to know about those. I think we need to document these very well.
I'm watching the time, but I'll direct one more question, Murat, and thank everybody for their questions that are coming in. So this would probably be more applicable to an international entrepreneurship course. The opportunity between the 2 sets of students, our students and peer students, to talk about a collaborative venture, to plan and develop a feasibility project or plan for a new venture, new business venture that they would participate in. Have you done anything like this? I think you've done some of these already.
Yes, absolutely. There was a couple cases. There was the one case where a student for one of our participants actually went back to Morocco, and they started, I think, or at least, I don't know where they are now. We really need to keep better track over time, especially 3-4 years, kind of hard to do that. But they start their own business. So one of our participants in study abroad and one of the colleagues in Morocco went back, and they were engaged in a new business venture using technology. That is one. We do a startup a project on the South Africa program, where they have to come up with a business proposal. I'm sorry, the Dubai program, Dubai, but that is much more focused on new business startup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have students working with their colleagues there. The peer component is not as strong as the Morocco component in Dubai, but the focus there in the Dubai program is more on new business ideas, new venture development, and what have you. For these, we did one for a startup company, but it was mostly consulting with a startup. That was the confectionery company. It's a woman that was raised, it's a Moroccan raised in France, came back to Morocco and started her own business. And our students were able to help her explore ideas of where to position, how to position her product.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a quick question. If you guys are looking at the screen, you see the French, obviously, you see the Arabic, and you see the English. Can anyone tell me what language is the third one here? Greek? No, it looks Greek, yeah, but it's not Greek. Very well, Russia. good recommendations, but no. Very nice. That is actually Amazigh. If you guys maybe you might have heard this before, but a large segment of the Moroccan population is what we call Berber. But Berber, by the way, is actually technically a derogatory term. They are called Amazigh. These are the Atlas Mountains inhabitants of North Africa before the Arabs came in, and before the Spaniards came in, and before the French came in, and the Ottomans, especially in Algeria. But this was the Amazigh. Morocco has really done a very good job reviving the language. Now you have TV stations, schools, and communities run completely in this language. And we met quite a few people who did not speak Arabic or French, but spoke this language, and we had to kind of interact with them through translators. So it does look Greek there, but that is the Amazigh alphabet and Amazigh language. That is the original inhabitants of North Africa, and especially the Atlas Mountains in Morocco and Algeria.